Be the right club. Be the right club today.
Yes! Johnny, that's better than most. How about in? That is better than most. Better than most!
Expect anything different?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the No Laying Up live show and podcast presented, as always, by our friends at High Noon. Solly here, joined by my guy, Mr. Neil Schuster. How are we, Neil?
Good evening, Solly. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Calling in from Baltimore as well, Mr. Kevin Van Valkenburg. Hello, KVV.
Solly, I'm doing great. You know I love the Tour Championship format where players of lesser skill get some strokes. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Players of more skill get the strokes.
Oh, sorry, I screwed up the whole thing. Gosh, how did I clearly that's not the kind of format I like. I like getting those pops.
Speaking of pops, I just popped the top of a High Noon, and if you are a tequila lover who was never satisfied with malt-based hard seltzer offerings, you're going to love the new High Noon tequila seltzer, now available nationwide. They're made with real tequila and real juice. They got a clean finish because it's made with real Blanco tequila. It's 100 calories. It's gluten-free, no added sugar. They got 4 bright, crisp flavors: strawberry, lime, grapefruit, and passion fruit. I'm a big stan of the strawberry and the lime. I'm a big passion fruit guy. Grapefruit, can't really do it. I've just decided I'm kind of out on it. Not a big Paloma guy. I've tried it, just not my thing. But hey, there's offerings for everyone out there. High Noon is great for any occasion under the sun. And there's no better time than summer to try High Noon tequila seltzer. Look for High Noon tequila seltzer on Drizzly or at your local convenience or liquor store, or visit highnoonspirits.com to find it near you. Fellas, impossible is what they played for, and Victor Hovland achieved the impossible today by winning the Tour Championship and captivating the hearts and minds of golfers everywhere. I'm not going to start sarcastically, even though I just did start sarcastically. I do want to talk a little bit of Victor and give him proper credit, because of all guys to like be happy for and be like, kind of earn some life-changing money on top of, a guy that already has a ton of money. And I'm pretty happy to see Victor win. That's a dude that, like, I was trying to think of it today. I was like, dude, what's like the most unlikable thing Victor Hovland has ever done besides the shirts? Is anything come to mind?
No, I mean, I'm sure some Sooners would have something to say about that, but
you know how hard that is to achieve in today's day and age?
I know. I mean,
controversy-free European player. What in the world?
He's a thoughtful dude. He's a young, he's an easy guy to root for. You nailed it in the opening. I mean, he's the cutie pie.
As your wife has said,
my wife
cutie
has.
Pie.
It's like, oh, even now we were just watching him finish. It's like, oh, he's so cute. Like, I'm so happy for him. It's great. Good for him.
Dominant performance, dominant finish to the season. I feel like it's a lot on the tip of a lot of people's tongues and on the tip of mine as well. I should acknowledge that he has ridden me to the top of the season long standings. Our chase for the DraftKings title.
That would be the most unlikable thing about him, is that, he completely cucked me coming down the stretch. Not much I can do about that. So, but in true Icarito fashion, I will be wearing my FedEx Cup second place merch with pride in the coming weeks. Thank you very much.
We should see if Vic will join the Waffle House. If he'll come by just for, a little,
come through, Vic.
Patty melt, maybe something. Yeah,
I do. Before we go any farther, I want to give my guy Joe Lukes on Twitter a shout out. He was saying that Nance missed a golden opportunity to the Victor goes the spoils. Should have been the call at the end there. And I think that's fair. I mean, that's a good one. And congrats.
He did use Victor. He used it. Yeah, it wasn't quite that in your face, but it was the
But I
season
think
long
that,
victor, I think is what it was.
and the reason I say that is that kind of sums up this event for me. And Nance and Immelman were talking a little bit about it in 18 fairway. They were like, "Oh, this is such a massive." They were kind of talking about this is a big payday. It's $18 million, but they were almost like, "But it's a ton of stature with this win." And I was
Ton of
like,
FedEx Cup points too.
man, I just don't really think that's true, And so like that call, like truly to Victor goes the spoils. That's what this was all about. It's just it was a massive cash grab. And KV, I think you said it earlier in our Slack channel. It's like the money it's a big deal, but it doesn't gas me up anymore to watch this event. And I'm curious if you guys, you feel the same way about that.
It just, to me, look, it had a little bit of the live vibe today, where it's like, I just don't care. Like between, you tell me it's $10 million, it's $18 million, that makes zero difference to me as a viewer. And I understand why you got to pay your players that, but what is it? Why am I as a viewer giving a shit?
There has to be drama with it, right? There has to be like, oh shit, this putt's for $11 million, right? I feel like I would care a little bit about that, right? It's such a comically large amount of money that it's like you have to at least have that. To have a 5-shot march to the end it's just tough all around. I've ridden for this handicapped format. I think it is better to just simplify it for the viewer instead of 2 tournaments at once. I've said that in the past. I might flip around after this. Maybe we were due for one of these, but like, I don't think it. I think Xander said this earlier in the week. I think we can do better than this for the finale. I've always agreed with that. I think unless they're going to go match play, I thought this was at least a better way of saying like, hey, this is simple. Here's what it is. But it's really hard to sit here and knowing that Xander and Victor would have been tied at 19 under. And I know the tournament may have played out differently if the strokes were different, but they tied at 19 under gross, and Victor goes and wins by 5 because he started 5 shots ahead of Xander on the leaderboard. It's just tough sitting here. They were due for one of these to kind of end up like this, and it's tough sell right now, I would imagine, if you're the tour.
I think both those things can be true. I think it's better than it was. It was always tough when you had 2 separate trophies and 2 guys are, getting celebrated at the end, but it should be better because it's still it. And I think some of it, like mentally for me, I know, par is irrelevant and all that, but when they start at -10, I wish the leader would start at even. I think Tron was saying this to us earlier this week. I totally agree. All the other guys should start over par. Mm-hmm. And I just think like when it starts to get to 26 under, just mentally for me, I'm like, this is turned into, it feels Mickey Mouse, even though it doesn't really matter. Like it's the same thing. I know that this probably sounds stupid, but for me, as I'm watching, it's easy to just glaze over because like one, the money is so large that it's hard to like make it meaningful to me. And they did a little bit of that with like, the only example I actually can give is like Shank, had like a 4-footer and they're like, okay, well, he's probably sitting at T7. That's like $1.2 million. So if he misses this, that's like $400K, but they're not really making that a meaningful part of the broadcast. And if that's kind of what we're playing for is this money, I feel like that should just be on the leaderboard, like how much money you're gaining and losing, like in real time.
I feel like they can't figure that out, whether they want to lean into it. I felt like they've leaned into
they're
it
stuck
more
in the middle because in the past it used
Yeah.
to be don't talk about the money,
but they
now it's like talk about
year.
the money, talk about the money.
Last year, because of all the live stuff going on,
Yes.
especially, they were talking about it a lot, and I think they got bad feedback about that. But man, it's just I threw out a little poll on Twitter today, like, hey, is this it? Or do you think they need to do something different? And I know Twitter is its own little weird thing, but 80% of people that responded to that said that it should be something different. I think that's kind of hard to ignore. I mean, you get 80% of people to agree on anything on Twitter is kind of a shock. And I inevitably every single year on this pod, it comes right back to the match play argument. Why can't they do match play? And I'm sure there are other reasons, but I usually end the season on kind of a bleak note, and I feel the most bleak I've felt at the end of one of these. I think if Can't lay Rom a few years ago was tough, but this was really
I think it has I feel similar to you, Solly, and I don't think it's just the format. I mean, as someone from Atlanta, I don't want to bash on Eastlake too hard, but the golf course is, excuse the pun, but it's kind of run its course for me. I mean, it's not doing a whole lot. I know they're going to redo it after this year, but I think, late in August in the South, the rain delays kind of just pour truly cold water on things. And there's just a lot of, I don't know. It just doesn't have the juice. I know I keep saying that, but that's a word I come back to. You just turn it on. You're like, man, and I felt like, BMW does have the juice a little bit more. like last week, it's exciting, and there's more guys. It's more of feels like a real event. This feels almost like a exhibition in some ways.
Guys, how do you think it would have been to do a live show when we were celebrating the Bill Haas victory in 2011? Do you think that would have had any juice?
That was dramatic, though.
It was dramatic.
It was playoff. Like at least like I feel like this format hasn't gone this way. It hasn't led to a blowout like this, but it is more likely to end with a dull result like we got, right? A real golf tournament is just way more likely that it's going to be less likely that somebody goes and separates himself.
But on the flip side of that, it was not close, but there was some really, really good golf played. So that back nine, like Xander and Victor hitting golf shot after golf shot, like pouring in birdies. I thought the broadcast it's almost like the rain delay becomes a little bit of a blessing with the broadcast because they just get all the commercials out of the way. And I felt like we're seeing a lot of golf shots, and I thought they had some great.
They were commercial free for the back nine, by the way, the entire back nine.
It was fantastic. Like that was all good.
I think that was scheduled though.
And you're hoping, you're rooting for Xander just to root for drama. But Victor deserves all the credit for he just like slammed the door shut at the end. And they're showing these. I do, and I'm curious if you guys feel the same way. They were showing a lot of the putts from behind the ball. And to see the way these guys roll that line end over end on these like 20-foot birdie putts, it's just incredible, And I thought like that was seeing high level golf played was a silver lining here, even though it wasn't dramatic.
Pretty good camera work, I gotta say, on those things. A lot of like low crouchy shots where the ball's in focus, but the hole isn't, and then you see it rolling on the line. I give CBS credit for that. That was pretty cool.
That's a CBS difference. They've obviously we've given them a lot of credit over the last couple of years for them revamping their telecast, and we've never seen them do the playoffs. I don't think we've seen them do the playoffs, at least definitely not in recent years. And it felt like they did not mail it in like we felt like NBC has been doing for quite some time. And
it feels like chemistry in the booth. All those guys in the super tower. It feels like they're having a good time. It feels like Trevor's bringing in some energy out of Nance, which is awesome. And then it feels like having all three of the playoffs together, they built some momentum and like almost cohesion the last 3 weeks.
I do want to shout out the cameraman too that was in the dead sprint to follow Victor Hovland's cart back out after the rain delay. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a camera. TJ, I forget the guy's name, but he was in a dead sprint following the camera, and even Victor's caddy was like, "Yo, you're gonna follow us all the way to number 2?" And I laughed because they actually zoomed back to a different shot of him running instead of the camera that he was holding. I'd been like, dude, I'm sprinting with this card and you guys aren't even using the shot I'm giving you right now.
Send it to me right now. God damn it. I'm putting in the effort.
It actually is like being on site at BMW last week. It's fun to watch the hard camera guys. There's the cameraman and then there's the tripod man, and they get the shot and the guys are walking off the green. And they wait and they clear, and then it's like unclip, and it's like camera on the shoulder, and they're out. They're like, okay, we got to move, go, go, go. It's like it's good entertainment to watch in person.
Do you know what a hard camera is? Because that's a soft camera.
That's a soft camera. I thought that was a hard camera.
Our camera doesn't move.
Oh, okay. I thought it looks pretty sturdy on the tripod. That's hard to me. Semi-hard. Come on.
If you ever want to really piss off a
call
TV,
it a flaccid camera. Come on.
If you ever want to piss off a TV executive, lean against the hard camera as you're just like watch. Oh, the bad. You can like causes little vibrations in the thing when they're trying to do the close-ups. That's a way to get your ass chewed on inside the ropes.
I just, again, CBS has truly given a shit about their product, which is kind of a backhanded compliment after many years of not doing it. But it's something that it does stand out, and it was badly needed on a day like today. But I was supposed to start the show doing this, but just a quick play-by-play if you didn't watch it all. Xander and Hovland both busted out. And if I can also say a little bit of a crowning on the first tee in terms of all the people that lined up to like applaud and shake Victor Hovland's hand. I don't know if you guys saw this on the very first tee, but it was like a processional. They followed his walk all the way there, and so many people almost like congratulating him on the first tee. And I was like, okay. I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens here. But of course, he slammed the door. They both went 4 under in their first 6 holes. Xander then birdied 8 to cut the lead to 5. He missed a short birdie putt on 10, but so did Hovland. At this point, they were put on the clock, which unless you're going to stroke them, there is no amount of money that they could have fined them that would have made a difference in this scenario when you're playing for a difference of $11.5 million. But Xander birdied 11 to cut it to 4, and then birdied the 12th to cut it to 3. Which I think looked closer than it really was. I don't think Victor's win probability ever got below like 92% at any point on this day. Vic made all pars, and then he poured in birdies on the last 3 holes. Xander birdied the last to shoot 62, but again, 1 by 5, which is the exact number of shots he started over Xander. Question from David McDowell. Over under 2.5 majors for Vic. And I got a big challenge flag to David here. We got to throw it to Neil for the over under first. That's the deal. What would your over under have been, Neil? 9.5?
I mean, with all the close calls, it feels like he's gonna, bust through the door next year. Realistically, I'm ready to say 4.
4.
That's
wow.
He's 25 years old.
That's so many majors.
I know it is, but come on, it's fun, right? I think that's because of his age. I think that's realistic. I mean, and he's really worked hard on his chipping. It's gone from a massive negative to slightly above in the strokes gain category around the greens. I think he's a well-rounded. I mean, we talked about it a few months ago. Like this Morikawa versus Hovland career arc is a very interesting, thing to monitor. And I feel like, so Morikawa's got 2. I feel like Hovland, I mean, if you want to say 2.5 is a better number, sure. But I think 4, like that would be
you think
over
under
number.
The over under should be 4. I thought you were just going to say he's going to win 4.
I guess what I'm saying is I think he's going to win 4. Do I think that, I'm not clearly after my collapse with our DraftKings plays, I'm not a good gambler. So I'm a bad line setter.
I also think you ruined Nelly Corda's career by setting it at 10.
I laid the gauntlet down for her. You know what? That's not my problem. That's
she
hers.
couldn't get to it. So you said he's 25. Rory already had 4 majors at 25. Spieth had 3 majors at 25. Tiger have 8 majors at 24. So just throwing those out for context,
for sure.
Kevin, I think we got to dig in on this. I think Neil knows something we don't. He knows something about major inflation. Like there's 5 majors on the women's tour. Maybe he knows that the player is about to become a major. Maybe
if you throw the players in, make it 6, man.
Maybe Liv Bedminster becomes a major or something. Like that's the only way to explain how he's handing out too many major trophies. There's not enough.
So all right, to bring it back though, for real, I think David McDowell 2.5. That seems like a great line. I would take the over on that. Let's do that.
I'll go under. I will go under for almost anyone sitting here right now. Like, will you win more than 2.5 majors going forward? I don't know who I would take over other than probably Scotty right now. Maybe wrong. I
mean, I would take Morikawa just because 1 more major would.
No, going for from sitting here,
forward.
Will you win 2.5 more right now?
Yes. Okay. I would probably still take the under. I think Vic's going to win a major, maybe 2, but I just think it's really fucking hard to win majors. And it just, whatever we think that people are going to rack them up, they just don't.
Well, I'm an optimist and I'm rooting for him. So I like the over. I like my plays.
I'm even more bullish on unders on this when we just had a year where Wyndham Clark and Brian Harmon won majors. Like,
listen, you guys are making some good arguments. Okay, I'm not gonna fight you on it, but I would still like to take the over.
Before we close the book on Hovland and talk about larger things, has there ever been an example of a player who was so freaking bad at one thing and then turned it into a strength within, a year? I was really struggling to think of a comp for this. And I just
not even a year.
Can I challenge you? Lucas Glover?
6 months, right?
I mean, well, if Lucas Glover had won the FedEx, that would be a good case for that. But I mean, legitimately, Hovland was among the worst short game players on tour. And was a miracle that he won Puerto Rico because all he basically did was hit every green there. And he was talking about, it's comically bad. And now he was competitive in 3 of the majors and now won the FedEx Cup. I'm struggling to think of somebody who saw a clear shitty thing in their game was I'm going to make that better.
And step one
I will
is
say
acknowledging it.
Right? Not only acknowledging, but being able to joke on yourself and play on yourself and be like, God, this is so bad. Yeah. I remember yesterday the telecast or the pregame show did a great job of going back to Bay Hill and when they interviewed Victor about his chipping and hey, this isn't good. And he's like, yeah, it's really not good. I know that. And they're like, well, what are you working on? And this was before Joe May and everything. This is last year at Bay Hill. And he's like, oh, well, if I'm okay if I can use a little bit of bounce, but if it's anything at all leading edge, I literally have flashes in front of my eyes. I start seeing black spots. It's not good. But you want to talk about, Neil, how quick this change has come? After this year's Tournament of Champions, that's when he reached out to Joe Mayo longtime teaching professional out of Las Vegas, worked at TPC Summerlin for a long, long time. Started as a teaching professional, quit for a little bit, and was a professional poker player. And then when TrackMan came around, he's like, oh, that's what I was missing. And then started teaching again. Crazy, wicked smart dude when it comes to TrackMan. But they started working on it, and it's not just short game between the two of them. He's really done everything full swing, complete game to include putting. Now they've added, the broadcast talked today about adding Eduardo Molinari to do all his statistics and stuff like that. And then Joe Sinclair, who's down here in Dallas, does a lot of like the biophysics and 3D analyzing and stuff. Where Victor's talked in the past, he like is craving so much information, and no other instructor has been able to give it to him. Where him and Joe are like two beautiful minds to get together like this, and they would just vibe off each other perfectly.
The only example that I can think of on, off the top of my head is, and it's not really the same thing, but like Max basically getting the driver yips, and then now being back to one of the best drivers of the golf ball on tour is probably, but it's almost like he had that and then he lost it and then he got it back, where it's almost like, I don't know if Victor ever was like a wizard around the greens.
And just to be clear, like Victor's taken his short game from like an obvious deficiency to around average now, right? It's not like he's
slightly
not a wizard,
above average, slightly above,
very slightly above, but he doesn't need to be much more above that, because he's one of the best ball strikers in the world. And he is almost 10 yards longer than average and 5% more accurate than the average professional golfer. That combination of being long and accurate is so deadly, and it's really hard to screw up from there. Then you add in the gains 8/10 of a shot on approach in every single round he plays, and also gains with the putter. Like, dude, you're just going to be an absolute top 10 machine, and you're going to win a ton. And
so he's going to win 4 majors. There you go. So that thank you for making my case.
It's very interesting. But incredible finish to the year. He finished T4 at the Open. And then he also had obviously a T2 this past year at the PGA Championship, and then goes and just absolutely runs amok here to finalize the FedEx Cup. And it's a very good time to play very good golf, because he won a lot of money doing it. So
this conversation though, KV, that question leads me to Scotty and putting, where it's like, you're not really seeing that same attitude when people ask Scotty about his putting. It's kind of like no, it's fine.
Let's get right to that, Neil, because that's probably the top thing on my mind too. I want to talk a little Xander actually before we get to that as well. But also FootJoy, the unquestioned leader in performance golf rainwear, with their new Hydro Series. They are raising their rain game even higher somehow. They've got incredible stuff. Real golfers make every day playable, and FootJoy gets that. Hydro Series is the most comprehensive lineup of high-performance rainwear in golf. If you've ever worn cheap rain gear, you're going to learn very quickly that why the good quality stuff is so important when the actual conditions come. From mist to monsoons, they have a range of jackets that will get you through anything. These are jackets that look sharp, protect like nothing else. Plus, unlike a lot of rainwear options, the Hydro Series jackets are made specifically for golf, with materials to keep you comfortable and swinging without restriction. They got the DryJoy Select, which is the best of the best, the lightest, most waterproof and breathable jacket out there. The Hydro Light X, which is lightweight, breathable, and flexible for warm, wet conditions. Then Hydro Tour for the most extreme, cool, wet weather conditions. On Hydro Knit that wears like a mid-layer but protects like a high-performance rain jacket. All adds up to being able to play more golf and better golf regardless of conditions. So forget checking the forecast. Go to footjoy.com and find the Hydro Series jacket that will help you play in any condition, anytime, anywhere. I got a thermo hoodie on that they sent me recently that I'm wearing this almost every day around the house.
So I got to say, as Neil well knows, when we were at the Open Championship, it was quite rainy, as it always is. My golf clubs got lost on the way there. All my rain gear was packed with the golf clubs. Our friends at FootJoy were kind enough to just hand me some new the Hydro Series stuff before it had even hit the shelves. Saved my whole tournament. Wow. Like, there's no way I've been able to cover it. Was comfy, was not sweaty and gross as often rain gear is. So it was huge shout out to the FootJoy people for basically making my Open Championship possible.
Love that. Neil, before we do get to Scotty, I want to again shout out Xander for yet another just fucking ridiculous Tour Championship performance. I made the joke earlier that he may lay in front of the bulldozers tomorrow and they go try to remodel this golf course, because he has made so much money from this golf course. If you don't mind, can I entertain you guys with what his FedEx Cup finishes are? Threw this out on Twitter: 2nd, 4th, 5th, 2nd, 2nd, 15th, 3rd. KVV, do you want to repeat what you said in our Slack earlier today?
I said, why isn't Xander better?
I'm with you, KVV.
You took it to me immediately. How dare you? He's like 5th in strokes gained in the last 16 months.
What more do you want?
I've been a massive fan of Xander, but I'm with you, KVV, and I would love to unpack this.
Okay, so part of the reason I said this is because I think aesthetically, I love Xander's swing as much as anybody on tour. I think it's so like technically beautiful. And he just, it seems like he shouldn't miss a shot. Like I watch him, I remember watching him and Spieth play around together where they were paired together in Phoenix. And I was like, holy crap. Like this is like technically perfect person who like nails every note, and like a jazz singer who just riffs and every single thing is different. Like you cannot imagine how good Xander looks compared to some of the guys out there who just are like even Scotty, who feels like he's making it up on every single swing. And, you know, Xander hasn't won, right, since the Scottish Open last year in 22. So I just feel like he's been close in a couple majors. Obviously, he's very good, but we should still hold him to a high standard, right? Like he should be someone who are like, all right, dude, like, why aren't you winning majors? You have too much game for this. And I remember like thinking before the Torrey Pines US Open, he like switched his putter like literally a week before. He was like, oh, you know, I've been seeing a lot of guys having this arm lock success. So I'm going to go with, I'm like, dude, this is a US Open that you should win. Like, this is a perfect course setup for you. What are you just already one of the best putters in the world? What are you doing fucking around with like your putting right before that? It just seemed like a very frustrating thing. And I want more out of Xander. Like, I feel like obviously he's not super interesting as a person outwardly. I thought he's very smart and he's like pretty clever when you get him like in a sort of one-on-one setting, and he has interesting stuff to say. But I want more from him as a winner, like a killer. I mean, Vic showed today he was a fucking killer. Xander is not a killer.
Which is well said. I think Randy and I have talked about this. He's approaching a bit of a Ricky situation where, you know, he's a lot of sponsors, a lot of attention, a lot of good results, a lot of the numbers are all there, but the checkbook doesn't seem to be balancing out with the wins. And there's a question on here.
I would say the checkbook is way above
checkbook.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking. I think
I'm saying it's not producing big, as TC would say, big dick wins. Like,
okay, because I think he's the king of playing, like racking off these tournaments where they're worth a ton of cash, and like majors, he just kind of he just can't compete them yet.
No, I'm with you. He's like he's an ATM machine, but there seems to be something missing to. Like what,
I know you're going to talk about all these top 10s and everything else like that.
Let's reconcile this really quick. Okay.
How many has he actually been in contention late in a Sunday afternoon?
The Masters, when he blew it on 16, was the last one I could really remember him. Like, are we going to win this or not? And that was 2 years ago.
Yep. He had a really close call at Carnoustie, 2028. He was also the runner-up.
2028? Well, we're talking about future majors now?
2018. He's going to win 14 majors. We know this. That was 2018. 2019, he finished one shot behind Tiger at that Masters. He has not had, like, the last 2 years have not been his best efforts. He has 6 top 5s in majors through 2021. None of them have come in the last 2 years, but he's won 7 tour events plus the Olympics. I mean, look,
a lot of limited field events there in those wins.
He's 29 years old. He's won the Tour Championship. He won a WGC. He won the Tournament Champions. He won the Travelers last year. He won the Scottish Open last year. Like, I mean, if we're comparing his record, like Victor obviously has won Memorial, BMW, and Tour Championship very recently, but Victor's other 3 wins were Puerto Rico, Mayakoba, and the Worldwide Technology Championship in Mexico on the PGA Tour. He's 4 years younger.
He's also 29.
4 years younger.
And so, I feel like I was hoping that leap would be made I feel like we're a couple years behind with Xander. I think that's right. I agree with you. Like I've been almost burned by it because I thought he was going to win a major last year. And then it was like, oh, well, you know what? He didn't. I'm going to miss on him this year. And then he just didn't even sniff one. And then you've got a question on here from Jake Bonneau. Apologize for no wins for Sahith and Cam Young this season.
Well,
without this finish today at the last tournament of the year where he kind of shows up and finishes, wins all the money, why wouldn't we be apologizing for Xander? He's kind of in the same boat as those two.
Yeah, he didn't win a tournament this year. That's not great, but it'd be different if, like, he again, this falls on deaf ears, and I know that, but like, it's really, 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 really hard to stay above 2 shots strokes gained for multiple years in a row. Like, he blows so many dudes out of the water in terms of like Morikawa, Hovland, for that sake. Like, it's like him, Cantlay, Rahm, Rory, and Scotty are like the only 5 dudes that hang out above that number in that category, right? He doesn't have off tournaments. He never goes away. Doesn't really actually slump. It's a sustained period of really, really, really good golf. Does the wins maybe not match that? I can accept that, but I feel like he gets dogged a little too hard sometimes in terms of like, when is he going to actually do one of these things?
The question wasn't why does Xander suck? It's why isn't Xander
exactly
better? Right. And I think that's fair. I think all the people that you just named have won a bunch of tournaments in the last few years.
Okay,
and
so
Xander has not been one of them.
Not have more peak weeks then.
Well, my point is, if you're going to put him in that category with the guys you just listed, there's one thing missing for Xander. He's not winning the tournaments that they're winning. You know, like he's not like
got more wins than Scheffler does.
Well, we're going to get to Scheffler. We're not there yet.
I think case in point of like how I feel about Xander is kind of how I feel about like how Wells Fargo finished this year. Like Xander basically in the driver's seat going into Sunday and like ended up losing to Wyndham by 4. And at the time it was like, wait, what? Wyndham Clark? It was before US Open and everything else like that. But like went out and basically laid an egg in a final round when you're like, dude, this was your tournament. Like just go do something on Sunday.
So if Xander held a 36-hole lead at Valhalla next year, would you feel confident that he could close and win?
How big is the lead?
It's 2, we'll say. Or he's like, sure. I mean, like,
yeah,
it's not a huge lead
because he's 2 shots better than everybody else is what you're telling me. So let's say he has a 2-stroke lead.
I wouldn't feel confident with anyone that converted that 36-hole lead based on what the numbers would say there. But I started this with like one of the more ridiculous consistent runs I could possibly identify for any golfer on the planet. I'm kind of surprised we ended up here that quickly. I'm just going to say it back. 2nd, 4th, 5th, 2nd, 15th, 3rd in his in season-long finishes. That's so incredibly difficult. If you, I promise if you ask any tour players about that, they would recognize how ridiculously impressive that is to play that much sustained good golf for that long period of time.
And credit should be given for consistency. You're right about that. And we have a comment on screen. Xander has not missed a cut all year. Listen, that's awesome. And I agree with all the numbers and everything, but I'm just personally, as a fan of his, a little disappointed that we don't get some more statement wins, some more like, you know, put some cases on people, man. Like, go get it done. And I feel like the last 3 years, there hasn't been a lot of that. Like, yes, Travelers and Scottish, you had a nice little 1-2 punch there last summer, but that was kind of like, oh, finally. Even before that, it was like, I felt like 5 years, it was all about like, oh yeah, but he won the gold medal. It's like, I don't really fucking care about the gold medal. Like, it's always like, oh, he's got 7 wins and he won a gold medal. It's like, does that really matter? Okay. Come on.
I'm willing to concede that the Atlantic Athletic Club is like Xander's Augusta to Jack Nicklaus. Like, he's going to compete there until he's 50 years old. Like, it's Eastlake.
Eastlake, yes.
That's how little I care about the courses that I can't even remember which one the name is. That's how boring it is to me.
God, it should drive by at Bobby Jones. Unbelievable.
Sorry. Yeah, you know, Bobby Jones. He's had his reckoning. It's time we canceled Bobby. Never mind. Sorry. No, I want to see more. I feel like he's a guy who should be winning majors. And if we're gonna dog Rory a little bit, which we should hold Rory to a high standard. Obviously, Xander's not quite Rory, but we should hold other guys up to that too. Here's a 2+ stroke game guy. You're always saying that. All right, win a major now.
Do you think he wins a major?
Yes, I do think he'll win a major. One major. I think there's a lot of people going to win one major. Like, I just think it's a dogfight every single time, and I think there's a lot of guys. Look, stacking 2 and 4 together is really freaking hard. But one, he's good enough to win one.
Neil, does he win a major? Does he win 8 majors?
The numbers would say yes, he does. But I haven't seen any evidence of, like, I was really rooting for him in that Masters when he dumped it in the water on 16, and that was kind of jarring. I think jarring for him and jarring for me as a fan. Of like, oh yeah, like I think there's some scar tissue there.
If you're Scotty Scheffler, what's your takeaway from this season? What are you feeling right now as you leave the grounds of Atlanta Athletic Club, as KVV would say?
Okay, I can tell you what my takeaway would be. I think I can also tell you what Scotty's takeaway would be, and I think they're 2 very different things. Okay. I think my takeaway would be, oh my God, I just absolutely pissed away like one of the all-time great seasons. This is maddening. I might be going crazy over this. Like, how can I not figure out putting? I used to be so good at this. It used to be so easy. I think Scotty's takeaway is just to basically white noise in your brain. Like, I can't even begin to think about this. Like, I think he's blocking it all out purposely, because if he starts to think about it, it's going to get worse. It's going to become a thing. And I think he's still trying to make it not a thing.
My take on, like, I followed him for, I guess, 27 holes last week, and he looked like unstoppable until basically 13 through 18 on Sunday. And the putts he's missing, they don't look like bad strokes. And it looks like he's overreading. It felt like he was missing everything on the high side. And now when I watched on TV, I kind of see the same thing. I wonder if he and, Ted Scott are like, they're reading everything together, it looks like. And are we blending too much opinion? Like, it almost needs, like, I think this is total amateur opinion, but it's almost like, man, you need to reset everything and maybe read your own putts, because it feels like good strokes, bad reads is what I'm seeing. And then that's starting to get in his head. He looks like he's about to freak out, but he's got it all bottled up. Like, his reactions to these gnarly lip outs are just kind of like,
yeah,
everything's fine.
He doesn't seem,
it's
seem confident that it's going to come out the window, right? We all know, like, what you're putting. Like, if you can make your putt come out of the spot you're trying to make it come out, you can make a lot of putts. And it looks like every one is a mystery to him, especially on short putts. It's alarming. It's bad. I think, Kevin, to your point, he may be putting on a little front to the media, but with how much he's changed putters around, how many hours he's spent on putting greens at tournaments trying to get this figured out, how many questions he's fielded, there's no possible way he is not completely domed by this, like completely domed. I mean, if you go back all the way back to, he obviously ran away with the Players, basically putting neutral, which is outrageous. He won by like 5 that week. And then you go to the Masters, he lost a shot per round and should have won that golf tournament, led the field in strokes gained tee to green. He, like, neutral at Byron Nelson, positive at PGA, but then way bad at Charles Schwab, horrible at Memorial, slightly good at US Open, slightly good at Travelers, lost stroke Scottish, lost stroke Open Championship, a shot per round, lost stroke FedEx St. Jude, lost stroke BMW, last in the field this week at the Tour Championship when you came in first place looking to win $18 million.
What was the number? He was 8 shots worse at Memorial. Like, if he was dead last at Memorial, right, when Victor won, and if he had just putted average, he would have won by 8 shots.
If he would have had Victor's putting week, he would have won by 17 shots.
So tough.
I think here's what I would advocate. He just needs, like, a post Ryder Cup, like, a month away from golf. It's too much golf right now, and too much, like, tinkering and, like, hours on the practice screen and over. I would just be like, you know what? Me and the wife are going to take a vacation. We're just not going to touch golf for a while. And there's no, like, that doesn't matter quite as much with the season not starting up again now. I think it's going to be great for some of the top players to, like, actually get some time to breathe. And I think that might be what's best for him.
Solly, do you think, talk about the ball coming out the window. Do you think that his stroke is messed up, or?
No, I don't, and I don't know shit about any of that. Like, I'm not gonna, like, look at any pro stroke and be like, man, that doesn't look good. It just
it doesn't look like Zalatoris. No offense, not trying to drive by on him, but
it's
like,
not yippy.
It's not yippy. It really isn't. It's just like he's burning edges. Like, he's hitting, like, really firm putts. It just looks like it's always on the wrong. Like, it's always on the high side is what I'm kind of seeing.
Yeah, it looks just so unconfident, right? It just doesn't look like he's. We all, like, you can get into a flow putting if you're, like, even if your read is wrong, you can be like, if I hit it right here, it's going to go in, and you'll hit a way better stroke. Like, it kind of looks like he's unsure about everything and just kind of hits everything with a hopeful hit more than it is like, dude, I'm pounding this right in. Like, I just, like, watching Cameron Smith putt and watching Scotty putt, the stark difference in, like, the confidence and the speed and, like, just getting everything measured and accurate and right is. And it's just like, I don't remember this last year from Scotty. It seems like a new thing. I mean, he was a really felt like he made every 8-footer he needed to last season, and on his way to winning a shitload, obviously leading up to the Masters. And man, this has gone on for a long time. Got a question, and we'll get to Ryder Cup stuff here, but got a question as well from someone that said, Encore_T, is Scheffler's putting at all a concern for the Ryder Cup? Yeah, I think we're concerned about that. Like, I think there's very good reason to be concerned about that going into the Ryder Cup, among a lot of things. But
I will say, Sally, what's a little bit scary is that not a lot of people get to be better putters as they get older. Putting is kind of one of those things that you, like, as players age, they start to get a little scar tissue. It's harder to sort of, have the nerve to, like, really, like you just said, like Tom Watson, basically at 34, 35, kind of, stopped putting great and never won another major after that. And I don't think that's Scotty's future because he's not that age. But you can be like truly gifted at this and be fearless, and then all of a sudden it goes, and it just kind of. I mean, Phil's one of the few guys who later in his career like got it back after having some like real struggling and putting.
I said, to your point, I think it's a really hard thing to get back mid-season, right? And I think with some off-season time and some real time, like it's really, really hard to make when you're making a lot of changes. It's hard to get like a big enough sample. You stop controlling variables, right? You start being like, all right, well, I'll add a line on the ball and I'll try this putter, right?
Oh God, now you're speaking my language, brother. Start stacking fixes. That's never gonna work. I got a lot of that going on right now.
With a little bit of time, like I'm sure there's like a technological fix to what is going on. Like there's so much good technology in putters. I think he really wants to make that specific putter work because he's had success with it. And it's just, I don't know. DJ's gone through putting woes. Like I'm not giving up on Scotty's putting. I'd be surprised if it turned around before Italy. I really would.
As a fan, and this is, it's his right. He can handle it however he wants, but I'm drawn more to the Victor Hovlands who, my chipping sucks, man. Like, hand up.
It's kind of in denial. Yeah.
I would like to, I'm almost rooting for Scotty to be a little bit more vulnerable about it. Like, let me in. Not that I'm going to help you, but it's just like, hey, man, it's okay if you're struggling with the putter. You don't have to act like it's not an issue. I don't think that's helping. Is my outside opinion.
What else we got to get to here? We got a bunch of questions here. Congratulations to Roy McIlroy for breaking the single season driving record on the PGA Tour.
Oh man, I was following this like it was the home run derby, so I can't believe it.
I mean, everyone keeps telling us how much the fans love the driving distance and how that's what drives the fan interest. But I think back on like some of the great like record chases. I think back of the summer of '98, McGuire, Sosa, and I think of like Rory this year. Chasing down this record. If I'm looking at the longest driving records seasons of all time, I wouldn't blink an eye at all at the fact that 12 of the top 14 driving distance seasons of all time have been in the last 4 seasons. I think that would be like that gets none of my attention, and I would not think that there's anything of any concern related to that at all. So,
can I ask a technical question? How do they calculate it? Is it just like, are they taking every drive he hits, or like I've always wondered what's the
driving distance stat is 2 drives, same hole, everyone per round.
Okay.
Which
I've never understood why we can't just fucking add up all the holes. Like
you can, but you try to do like drivers. Like everyone's gonna hit driver on this hole, so we're gonna measure this hole instead of like, all right, we're not gonna punish Rory for hitting 5 wood off this tee when Joel Damon, sorry bud, is hitting driver on this tee. That's the reasoning. There is a separate stat kept for all drives, but they don't consider that like the driving distance.
I think Rory should be pissed. I mean, I can't believe he didn't get any shop credit for if that's how we're doing it. It's basically
they probably won the longest drive. Right?
I mean, I think I writing his name down, putting the thing in the fairway. I think that would get the fans involved, right? Like going up and signing the card and putting it back and like come.
There should be a fall series event where they do have that, where they like you have to write your name on thing. Like
you should get some FedEx Cup, shop credit.
I do think. Another note from Rory this past week, a question from Glade Saratoga. Rory injury news was brutal for gamblers. I guess we just found out on Thursday that he hadn't played a hole of golf all week and that he was dealing with a back injury. He said, when is the tour going to implement injury reports? It's unjust to accept gambling money, have live odds in the broadcast, and totally keep us in the dark.
You know what? The Beluga agrees with that.
It's been like 10 years since we've been talking about this, and there's been no progress on this. And I have no answer for you, Glade Saratoga, that would provide any insight as to why the tour wouldn't feel a responsibility to provide this information to people that are gaming on their sport.
Even college football announced this week that they're going to have injury reports this year. Essentially, the coaches won't be able to sort of pull the same kind of shit that they used to. Where they like, so it's you're right. Like I'm not a gambler, but if I were, I'd be pretty pissed. Maybe you can blame your beat writers out there who should probably be like, hey, Rory hasn't played a practice round all week. Like, what's going on here? So they need Billy Walters to be out there getting the newspapers, scooping off of airplanes, so that
the only thing I can think of there is the difference with golf is that there isn't really like a team. So there's not like a team physician or like, are these guys, with football, with basketball, like you're checking in with your trainer, the team trainer is kind of running the like injury report and stuff. Whereas these guys are all kind of independent, entities. Like, are they checking in with like the guy in the no bowl training truck and saying like, "Hey, my back hurts." Like who? I don't even know if there's anybody on tour that tracks that stuff.
That's what I'm
They
saying.
should.
They should implement a
Yeah.
system. Like there
So
are
I'm just
ways-
trying to think about why it hasn't happened. I can see that, there's just like there's like a normal tour event, 150 guys. Like, I don't know if they're all checking in for like, how you feeling, bud?
That's a great point. They have to register for a tournament the Friday before. They have like till Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern or whatever. They should have to list like what current ailments they have, and then mandatory updates throughout the week until their first tee shot on Thursday, if anything changed. I don't know why that's not like built in there. That like, I understand you could probably pull, it's a privacy thing here, and I'm sure there's HIPAA concerns or anything else like that. But if the tour is going to be taking gambling money now, like, they should figure out this way to at least keep these books that they're now partnering with fucking happy.
the books are going to be happy.
Yeah, the books are thrilled about it.
The bettors are not.
Well, the Beluga is
yeah.
not happy about it. That's for sure.
Now,
would be
Tiger,
putting our
when
nuggies
you
elsewhere.
say you repaired your own wrist, what do you mean exactly there? Because
Yeah.
gamblers need to know you have a lot of
Really?
metal in your knee. I just want to follow up on that.
Tiger,
I don't know.
I feel good.
Injury
You're
report.
right.
Feels
You're right,
good.
Neil. I don't know if there is a PGA Tour physician. I know there was an LPGA Tour physician because he or she, I can't remember, but passed away earlier this year, like the previous one that had just retired. But I don't know if the tour has like a certified doctor. I assume they probably do somewhere.
Because
But
that's
who
the difference
knows?
between like the NFL, the leagues don't run it. They talk to the trainers of the team. So there's like a middle man in all of this, like organizations doing all the organization of the information.
I think, Neil, look, let's not, Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, PGA Tour should not look to them for anything on how to engage fans or how to like make really dedicated fan bases at all, right? I think they should you could either do it that way or do it your own way. I think they should just do it their own way with pretty much every decision they make. I think is what they probably should go with.
Sure. Really?
It's fucking working, man. Look at all these people. We're the number one professional tour, man. That's exactly what they think. It's so dumb.
Big picture wise, though, I think with the stuff with Max getting the thing yelled at during the middle of his putt, there's some issues with gambling that are going to need to be addressed, and I feel like golf is mostly like, let's just punt that down the road. Like, we don't need to really like talk about that yet. And actually, like, you should probably address it before it becomes a big problem. Right?
What did someone yell? I missed that with Max. What happened?
You missed that.
BMW.
Yeah,
The BMW,
I also
someone screamed.
I also
during-
got
so he
shit
was-
on for this. Go ahead.
Someone
Kev.
yelled during one of his putts. I bet you miss it, like while he was taking the putter back. And so he kind of jawed at him a little bit, and it became sort of a discussion point at the beginning of this week of like how big of a problem people yelling in stuff is. And the tour was very quick to sort of send out a thing. This is not an issue. It's not a concern. And Rom was like, it's actually like a much bigger concern than you guys realize. And so I think getting ahead of that before it becomes, because the money's just going to get larger and larger, and the incentive we're talking about gambling in general, right? Because of all this stuff with Phil and Billy Walters and all that, like, would someone do something to affect the outcome of a game? Would someone potentially, cross an ethical line? And that all those issues are going to be a big fucking deal when it's too late. Like, when they haven't addressed them, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh fuck, maybe we should have like figured out a way that like people get ejected immediately for this, or like, players are not allowed to place any kind of bets whatsoever, and they have to sort of prove that they're not doing that, in a way that like the NFL players have to. The NFL does a really good job of making sure that it's very clear what the rules for gambling are. And that's why the NFL is the most gambled on sports. Because like, all right, Calvin Ridley like literally bets in like a parlay, he gets suspended for an entire year. That sends a fucking huge message to the rest of the football players out there: don't gamble. And so I think golf needs to eventually have a conversation like that before they end up in a situation where they're fucked.
Yeah.
So they do have a specific anti-gambling policy that is very clearly stated in their handbook, and is every player has to sign off on. And they have communicated that part very clearly to players, all the way down to caddies too. Like, caddies are not allowed to be like, hey dude, this guy looks really good this week. You can't give off any side information. You definitely can't wager of any kind. That's one. Two, for fans, dude, it's kind of one of those things, like, you go to a golf tournament and everyone's just kind of bound by the whole same social code of like, yeah. dude, don't yet. Like, there's like 1,000 people on this tee. Like, don't yell during the guy's swing. And I imagine people do get ejected immediately upon doing it, but I don't know how you, aside from like putting muzzles on 1,000 people on it, that you want to cheer as soon as it's hit. I don't know how you stop it other than like a quick pull. That's something that I don't feel like it's as easy to be like, hey, do something about this guy. It's like, well, I mean, I have a feeling they're ejecting people that are causing any concerns on that front.
So should the tour then force Rory McIlroy to disclose his like back injury?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I think that's part of it. It's like, all right, you have to basically say like, are you injured this week? And again, like private players are going to be pissed about that. Like we've thought that JT had like an injury throughout the season, and when we asked him, he's like, nope, I'm good. I still don't know that I buy it, but if you're forcing players to disclose that for gambling reasons, I think a lot of them are going to push back, and that's going to be an interesting conversation if they do.
That's cool, and I get the independent contractor side of it, but also like when you're signing up as that independent contractor to take part in this event, like it's just a rule that should be put in place based off of the tournament organizer that says these are the things that you have to keep us abreast of. Like I don't understand like how the independent side of it would make it so they can't do it. Outside of because they have all the leverage in the world, it seems like it will never happen.
Yeah, I don't know. How about Monahan getting booed during the after being introduced at the trophy ceremony?
I think it's just like welcome to being a sports commissioner.
You've made it.
Yeah, like that's. I feel like that's pretty par for the course in every other league.
I think golf fans have gone.
I think he's earned it. He's also earned it. So
golf fans have gone different to like I'm mad at you now.
Yeah.
TC said, "I've never been so proud of Atlanta in that moment."
That's good stuff.
I would love to poll the audience of like, what are we booing him for? Like, I get the general sentiment here, but like, can you explain what he did wrong here? And just, I don't know, man. Like the live thing, like that's not good. I have a feeling that's what the answer would be. But yeah, once you don't recover from that. Like once Gary Bettman got booed for the first time, it happened at every Stanley Cup final. So that's
Jay should lean into it like Goodell did, where he used to like antagonize the fans at the draft to be like, let's go. And,
how long is Southern Company? How long are they locked up for? Because that would have been a tough scene if you have got to go back into contract. I think they're locked up for like until like 2030. But that's a tough scene.
Well, this is also a weird one, like title sponsorship. I'm like, is it Coca-Cola? Is it Southern Company? Is it FedEx? Like, who is the
2027?
Who's the top dog here on? Because as a casual fan, I would have thought Coca-Cola was the title sponsor.
Well, I will say, give them credit. A commercial-free back nine was a cool idea. Like it didn't work out this time, and like I'm sure we would have been infuriated by the number of commercials if it was a very close tournament, because we always are. But it was nice to sort of have that in exchange. That's more of that, please.
It's where like I'm kind of defeated on where we end up in terms of how we crown a champion. I'm pretty resigned and like. Again, I don't really actually care about this stuff, but it seems like Southern Company, Coca-Cola, FedEx in general, pretty great partners of the tour, like provide incredible funding. A lot of the stuff that Southern Company and Coca-Cola have done around this event and I've done around the neighborhood and in the East Lake area in general seem to be like really, really positive initiatives and really strong investment, good tent poles for the tour to like say like, hey, that's our season finale. I don't think it's great for fans, but it's like really hard to get worked up. It's a challenge in getting worked up. I am still worked up because I feel like it just falls flat, this end of season kind of title thing that I was kind of thought I was excited about this winter. And I, by the end of the year, just stopped being, but it's hard to like get mad at Southern Company and Coca-Cola that are like putting up all the money for this, that probably are the ones that say like, no, we don't like want match play final. Like it's just like kind of hard to disagree. Like you get to the weekend of the match play, and it's like there's like 4 people playing golf on a Sunday. That's maybe one of your best hospitality days. It's just a tough sell. It really is a tough sell, even if it'd be way better for the fans at home, which is like kind of where I wish I was smart enough to get to a place where it's like, all right, can we have a season-ending event that's just like a made-for-TV spectacle of some kind? Like, can we do the Tour Championship and then do the FedEx final, like match play, top 8 make it, something like that on top of it, so you still get the sponsors. The tournament sponsor gets this event, but only FedEx owns the finale. It's at night. It's match play the week after the Tour Championship, and we go from 8 down to 1. We go from 12 down to 1 and give the top 4 buys or something like that. I feel like we can find a better way to crown a champion than a handicap tournament at the end of the year.
And also like a skills challenge, like make it like the All-Star game. That's like also bring everything in. I don't know. You're right. I get weird with it.
Well, I worry a little bit about the made for TV thing just turning into like the Capital One match, which like no hate on that, but it feels.
But I mean, made for TV, and that like don't worry about the hospitality and putting a number of golfers that have to come through like that. That's like a downside of having few players in the field or in match play. It's like people get to a tournament and they just want to like watch people play golf to a certain extent. And if you're ponying up a shitload of money for a shitload of hospitality to take your customers, you want people flowing through there, right? Like that's kind of part of the deal. So it is a prohibitive factor in why we don't get match play. Everybody this time of year screams like, why can't we do match? Why can't we? But like that is the answer, right? And it's disingenuous to kind of not address that or not like to skip past that at this point. That's what I'm saying. It's like if we get one that's not about like have a standing sponsor that's not about all this hospitality, let FedEx take their customers inside the ropes and follow matches. Like let them do that. Like that's some good ass hospitality.
Can I throw a wild one out at you?
Please
This
do.
is as half baked as it gets. Could we do some match play with some member guest scoring? You know, when people want to play all 9 holes. So like each hole's worth like a half for, if you, but 0.5 if you split, 1 if you win. Like, so that way they all play all 18. And then you just kind of keep a tally on the points. And then maybe like the guys that start to, I guess that's very half baked.
Yeah, maybe. Let's throw that in the maybe
I'm just
pile.
trying here,
Yeah.
man. I mean,
I know.
KD's throwing out
No
skills
bad
challenges.
ideas, right?
Come
No
on, I
bad
got a
ideas.
horse race. Some guy just recommended we do a horse race. Come on. Throw some more in the comments.
Hey, I would love if this got redirected. Like, I'm good on everyone's ideas on how to finale this. I've got them for 10 years. Neil at nolayingup.com. Send them that way.
No.
I think we just need like a Don Draper type figure to go in and convince Coca-Cola and Southern Company, like, you need to have match play. This is what America was built on. Let's go. Just convince them it's their idea. My God,
Hey,
I love that.
It's pretty fucking easy for fans at home to digest. Like, this person is playing this person, and if he loses, he goes home, and the winner goes on. Like, that's what I feel like a finale playoff. If you're going to call it playoffs, that's what it needs to be. Otherwise, please just call it something else. Anyway,
Why do they have to go home? Just like cut it down, because there's nothing that says anybody who makes the top 30 is like they get the same shit as whether you finish 2nd or 30th, right?
If you lose this, you have to go play live schedule. And
Well, no, what I'm saying is that like instead of like taking 30 or whatever, make it through BMW to the Tour Championship, just say, okay, these are the top 30, great. But really, if you want to get into the Tour Championship, the true Tour Championship, we're doing a 12-man match play bracket. And no, it's not like a lose and go home. It's like lose and you're going to play out until we figure out bracket into all those spots.
Yeah, you play for 11th place or something like that. You don't go home, but like you are not playing for the title anymore. Like if you lose. That's
that's kind of what I was getting at with the member guest scoring. Keep the guys out there playing golf so it doesn't. I think the problem with match play is always like Ryder Cup is a tough fan experience because there's only 4 matches on the course at one time. So live, that's always going to be tough for a sponsor and for fans. So like I get what you're saying with the made for TV thing, but it's also like it kind of also feels a little soulless. But I also want there to be match play. So like, how do you get match play, but you keep all 30 guys playing golf for whatever it is, 3-4 days?
I think made for TV, I don't mean it to mean like the match, right? I think it's just like, hey, let's just break the mold of our traditional tournament. Like, what they're trying to do is blend their traditional tournament model into like a championship, right? And golf just like doesn't work that way. It's really difficult to crown a champion unless you like it's the reason why all the other sports end up with people going head to head, like teams going head to head. And I know golf is different, but like, hey, dude, the Wimbledon final is one person versus this person. And I know it's a totally different sport, but like, it's really, really easy to digest when you flip on the TV of like, this is what they're playing for. So anyways, I'm pretty excited that golf, the PGA Tour season is over. There's a lot more golf to play, to be played. But I'm excited to maybe get out on the golf course. Fall golf is right around the corner. Fall golf in the mountains. There's nothing like it. Hopefully, you guys saw the Film Room episode recently with Neil and Tron playing Omni Bedford Springs Resort in Pennsylvania. Guys have been kind of a little out of the loop, in and out of paternity leave. Missed all the edits on that. Watched that video while I was trying to calm down a crying baby. Holy shit, that place looks awesome. Like I really, really wanted to play that golf course after watching that video. Set in the Allegheny Mountains, popping with fall color. In fact, Omni has 4 mountain courses that would be incredible for some fall golf. If we move south of Bedford Springs, but still nested in the Allegheny Mountains, is Omni Homestead in Virginia, where DJ and KVV It says battled here in the copy. I don't know if I'd call that a battle, but they played a film room match.
Listen, don't let your daughter see my chipping. All right,
There was a match. It did happen.
Fresh off a stunning $150 million plus renovation, it offers two of the country's most historic layouts, the Old Course and the Cascades Course. Fun trivia, the Old Course boasts the nation's oldest first tee in continuous use. Then even farther south is Omni Grove Park, located in the North Carolina foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains and close to the scenic Blue Ridge Parkway in Asheville. It is the ideal destination to experience the full glory of autumn hues, especially with its temperate climate during the fall months. And farthest north, Omni Mount Washington in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, is located amongst 800,000 acres of White Mountain National Forest. The Mount Washington Golf Course, designed by Donald Ross, has been named #1 best course you can play in New Hampshire. Cannot say enough great things about these locations. If you're looking for a fall golf destination, check out Omni Golf Resorts at omnihotels.com/NLU. Let's react. Let's go quickly over to the DP World Tour before we talk Ryder Cup. Todd Clements won in Czechia, and on the Ryder Cup front, Matt Wallace finished runner-up. Nikolai Højgaard finished third. Ludwig and Big Shot Bob finished fourth. Yannick Paul finished 10th. The auto spots for the European side will be sealed after this coming week's Omega European Masters. Luke Donald will make his captain's picks on Monday the 4th. This segment is brought to you by our friends at BMW, a worldwide partner of the 2023 Ryder Cup. BMW will be electrifying the Ryder Cup with a fully electric fleet of vehicles for players and officials this September. Did anything change this past week at the Tour Championship, do we think? Let's focus U.S. side from now. Did anything change this past week in terms of who you think is going to get picked on Tuesday?
My God, Keegan he's on the
campaign
trail, baby. The homeboy is pressing flesh, kissing babies. I mean, he's really putting it out there.
Not in the cool kids.
He wants to be a kind of a steady veteran influence on this team. What say you, Sally?
Keegan loves the Ryder Cup. I remain firm in my belief that Keegan has played really well in his 2 Ryder Cups and deserves another shot at some point. And he's probably not going to get on it because he's not part of the cool squad. So he has to sort of be a politician out there.
If Keegan played really well at 4-3, what do we think of JT's record in the Ryder Cup? Right? Does he have that over JT?
You know where I stand on JT. I've firmly pro JT being on the team. I can hold both positions, even though they're probably vying for that same spot.
How do you feel about Keegan versus Ricky? Because I honestly think that's more of the JT has more of the intangible stuff. I don't really think he should be on the team, but I understand if he is on the team, it's not going to really upset me. I get it. Ricky's the one where you can make a really good case that Keegan had a better year than Ricky. And Keegan, they've both been on the Ryder Cup teams. You could make an argument that Keegan is a better pick than Ricky.
What would the argument be?
That he's played a lot better golf and that he's a better golfer right now. Just basically that is the argument.
Better Ryder Cup history. Ricky's been nothing but a have machine in the Ryder Cup.
I'll give you that.
Better driver of the golf ball. Not a better putter, but I think those are my 2 strongest points. Like, has paired well in past Ryder Cups in ways that Rick hasn't, and in a course that is going to need a little bit of straight driving at least. I think that would be my best argument.
And Keegan, 2 wins this year. I think one was a fall season event. Didn't he win Zozo?
He did win,
and then he won Travelers, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
With a lot of other top 10 finishes, plays well on hard golf courses. I don't know if that counts in Rome.
So I'm sure
you've seen the course, Solly. I haven't. But I don't know. I think you can make the argument that Keegan is, better. And I think he's higher on the list too. So you're already reaching a little bit to get to Ricky. Like, he has a legitimate case that, like, why wouldn't you take me? Why would you take Ricky other than he's buddies with everybody?
Also, we learned this week that Keegan still has that suitcase packed from Medina. It's got a bottle of champagne in there that's been there for 10 years, a bunch of clothes that have to smell horrible. I really want that suitcase to get undone. It's sitting in Keegan's garage. Adam Schupak asked him about it, and he said, yes, I still have that suitcase that I haven't unpacked.
All right. What if I told you?
Unfinished business situation. Come on, let's go.
what if I told you that he's most definitely not played better golf than Ricky this past year? And
Then I would.
I
I'd
know
love
what
to
you're
hear
going to
the
go with
argument.
this.
No, like tell
Ricky's
me.
been half a shot better in the stats. Is that what it is? That's the sum total of the argument.
I'm a results based guy. I think two victories over one is
that's
pretty
just
good.
because of a reach around schedule, though. Like if not in 2023, he doesn't have
Well,
more wins.
Solly, you've been thumping the drum on recency bias here for a
Okay,
while.
do you want to do the last 3 months? Because he's been a half shot better than Keegan over the last 3 months. Over the last 6 months, he's got 15 top 20s this year. Keegan has 6.
Okay.
If you want to go back to the Zozo to be the defining
Listen,
factor
I didn't
here,
say
that's not what
I
would
am.
use.
I am. It's a toss up for me. I didn't bring this up as like, hey, I'm riding for Keegan. My point was just as a legitimate question. I think like listening to his interviews today, I was kind of like, you know what, he does have a case, right? Like he's played really well, and I think he's been more consistent over the last. If we zoom out to 2 years, 3 years, yeah, Ricky's back. He's got his game back, but like, Keegan. He didn't win last year, but he played well. Like he's had a lot of top 10, top 5s. He's been like he hasn't fallen like Ricky has. I think there's just a legitimate argument to be made that Keegan has a good case to be on the team is what I'm getting at.
Keegan, if we're going strictly by the numbers here, which I know, if you're confused by me using the numbers in some situations and not using it in some situations, I understand that. I do. But Keegan has not been one of the 12 best Americans from a strokes game perspective over any period of time, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. Ricky Fowler has been the 4th best American over the last 12 months. He has been the 5th best American over the last 6 months. And he's been the 6th or 7th, I can't count on the spot, in the last 3 months, right? So like Ricky Fowler has played sustained over any period of time, much consistently better golf than Keegan Bradley has. So
sure.
Does that
so
mean
maybe Ricky's the wrong guy?
Does that mean
I guess
Ricky's going to play great in the Ryder Cup? I have my concerns about that. I'm not like he's got a 3-7-5 record. It's not been good when he has played in the Ryder Cup. It's not been like with any authority. It's just kind of no real intensity. And do I have concerns over that? I absolutely do. At the same time, I don't see like enough from Keegan that makes me want to be like, dude, that's our guy and we got to go ride with. And I'd put him on the team over Ricky because it's been a very, very real renaissance, very well-rounded, so really, really good iron play and very solid putting to go along with it. And still like within shouting distance of being the same driver as Keegan is. That spot's going to Ricky in my mind, especially when you think about the team chemistry factor, which is a very real thing in this. So I think Keegan's just battling an uphill fight that he's probably not going to win.
Fair. I think that's a very good and fair argument, Solly. Would you, let's take Ricky out. Ricky's in. What about somebody like Cam Young?
I'm going to stand a little bit for Cam Young on this. I feel like he's been kind of the punching bag lately of like, dude, like, what have you done? He had a very clear period of time, that he did not play very good golf. He has been in an, he's way closer to the same golfer last year than he is this year than people realize. He's like within like 0.15 strokes per round of what he was last year during a very, very special year. I'm equally concerned at his putting this year than I was last year at the President's Cup. It was not very good, and he was not good in a lot of key moments in majors last year with the putter, but he's an immense talent. I think his ceiling is a lot higher in that event than someone like Keegan. I don't know if Keegan's not been a part of any of these teams, I don't think, since 2014. Cam Young being a part of this President's Cup team last year is probably just an advantage of guys that are familiar with him, probably know who they're going to pair him with. And again, it's not like Keegan has like busted down this door enough to get this spot. I don't see the number or the chemistry factor that would make you say like, hey, Keegan is the guy over Cam Young.
Hey, Sully, do you know what's the hardest thing for the Americans at the Ryder Cup traditionally, especially in Europe? Foursomes. It's foursomes, right?
Yes, in foursomes for sure. For sure.
Do you know that Keegan's record in foursomes is 3-1-1 in team matches? That Keegan's been really good to be paired with in general.
What are they in Europe?
I can look it up in just a second.
Because he went 2-0, I know, in foursomes at home at Medina with Phil.
He and Phil beat Sergio and Rory at Glen Eagles 1-up. So there's okay. He and Phil lost to Victor Dubuisson and Graham McDowell 3-2.
So 1-1 record 9 years ago. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what to make.
Listen, here we're picking and choosing. You can't tell me JT's like really good in this match play stuff, and then all of a sudden dismiss it when it comes to Keegan.
Well, like, the other thing is like,
wait a second. JT went 4-1 in the most recent Ryder Cup in Europe. All right.
Look,
Keegan,
Dustin Johnson went 5-0 in the last Ryder Cup, and we never talk about him as a potential person. So I think we got let's have some consistency here in terms of what we're arguing in terms of like, okay, their Ryder Cup record should matter versus like their strokes gained should matter. And I think JT, I agree that record should matter, but I think Keegan's also should matter in some context.
if we're comparing, we were just talking about Europe. You brought up foursomes in Europe. And so I said JT went 4-1 in Europe. DJ was 1-4 on that team, if we're talking about that, right? JT's got an almost flawless Ryder Cup and President's Cup record, right? You're not going to zoom in on any period and be like, all right, well, what about that? It's really hard. You can do that with DJ. First of all, he got suspended in 2014 and didn't get to make that team, and then went 1-4 when he went over the last time. And he's not played very good golf at all this year. Like, that's why he's not really in consideration for this spot. Like, that's not that far-fetched. JT has been on every team since then, has been successful on every team, and is one of the leaders of that team. That's why he's almost certainly going to get a pass for how he's played this year, which has been horrible. No one has debated that, and be a part of this team. 16-5-3 is really different than DJ's overall team record.
I just think that Keegan has been really good in all the team competitions that he's been a part of. He's been good at President's Cup. He's been good at 2 Ryder Cups. I think that ought to matter for something if JTs are going to matter for something. We can't say, by the way, those were too long ago, but then, you know,
he was 4-3 in the Ryder Cup, though. Is that really good? Like, or is that just
he lost two singles matches, but he paired great with everybody else. Okay, he was 2-1 at Glen Eagles. He lost one of those matches.
He was 3-1 at Medina, and he's 4-3 overall. So he'd be 1-2 at Glen Eagles then, right?
He he only played 3 at Glen Eagles because remember Tom Watson sat him and Phil, whatever. He was writing things up on a napkin or whatever. But Keegan played actually pretty darn well in his matches at Glen Eagles, in my recollection, and played certainly really well at Muirfield. So I'm just saying
the whole reason
I think
I brought this up. I'm not because I think KVV's making the point is that, like, I feel like we've written Keegan off like, oh, he's not making it, and then you start to dig into it. You're like, actually, I think he's got a pretty good case for it, especially like the Cam Young thing. Solly, I'm kind of in your corner on that, and I know Cody, it's your boy. Like, Cam Young is he's like one of those draft picks. It's like, oh, he projects so well, he but it's like Keegan's kind of like the boring, like, well, we know what we're going to get from him. Like, maybe that's what you want to ride with over there.
All right. So we know that Europe is really like the setup's going to be fucked. It's going to be very difficult. We've talked a lot about what a dumb decision it was to bring Phil and to bring Bryson last time. So what are the cannot take him? The course setup will not be favor this person players right now on your list. So you're like, I will not make that mistake again. This is not like where they should have brought Kisner, they should have brought Keegan maybe last time to Paris National. Is there a thing out there where a player you're like, look, we cannot repeat the Phil Bryson mistake?
I was gonna say Phil. That'd be if you're like honestly, a name that comes to mind would be like Sahith. Like, Sahith is not a good driver of the golf ball, like somewhat long, but like not accurate. That's a bad course fit, right? Like, you got to be a good driver of the golf ball for this course. Again, I've said this a bunch of times. This is not Le Golf National. Distance will be rewarded on this golf course. It is not a strictly accuracy contest. So I don't think like you need to make a tailor-made team for this golf course. Like Le Golf National, they should have and didn't. That's a hindsight thing, because again, I was totally fine with the captain's picks they made, but this course is not screaming like, hey, you need the Kevin Kisner style, super accurate driver. Russell Henley, whatever you want to say, like, you have to have this guy. Of all things, I think Russell Henley has one of the best cases. But again, it's like you go back to like who gets along best with these guys. Who do these guys want? These guys know each other's games really, really, really well, way better than we know them. And they know who the guys are that are really hard to beat, the guys they struggle to beat, and the guys that like they would want to go to battle with way better than we will, right? And like that's. And I struggled with just like he was confirmed 1-2 at Glen Eagles 9 years ago. He was great at Medina at home 11 years ago. I don't know what that means, Kevin. It might mean everything. It might mean nothing.
I understand you're using the time. One of the biggest changes in golf, specifically in Keegan Bradley's golf, came through this 10 years ago stretch, and he had to completely transform his fucking putting game. And look, he's come so far since then. Like, you're using it and keep saying that, which I understand is a qualifier for your argument. But like, Keegan's game was completely rocked by the anchoring ban, and him taking this long to get back. I think I didn't think Keegan Bradley was ever going to be back in the spot that he is right now, and he is here, and he's playing damn good golf. And I understand JT is going to be on this team because he's part of the club, and right, wrong, or indifferent, like he is, and he's really good at the fucking Ryder Cup. And people are going to ride or die for JT. You're right with Cam. Cam was injured at the beginning of the year. If you're looking back, like Paul Tesori, the caddy switch, I don't know if Paul would say, oh man, like the guy that I was with versus the guy that I'm with now, they're both potentially captain's picks here. And everybody thought Ricky was washed up. Ricky's going to be on this team.
Paul was with
only guy,
Webb Simpson, not Keegan.
Excuse me. You're right. But meeting Ricky there. The only thing that I would say somebody who we realize is like not in the conversation at all that I can't believe you guys haven't brought up so far, Lucas Glover, man. It's a shame. That was a joke, by the way. You guys are going to keep going round and round and round on this.
No,
it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, Zach's going to pick who he picks. We already know that Fred said, yeah, Cam is going to get a pick. We know that.
Yeah.
Keegan's not going to get a pick, and it's going to be okay because JT's a hell of a Ryder Cup player.
I guess the only part I would push back there of what you said there, Cody, is like, I don't think JT's going to pick because he's part of the club. I think it's because those guys genuinely think he's one of the guys that gives the 12 guys gives them the best chance to win. There's no like, this is not a sympathy 45-year-old, like he's been good Phil Mickelson pick that they've done in the past. Like that's not what this is, right? This is not like a ceremonial pick for JT. I think this is like, dude, I think we're going to go to battle. And
it's not based off current play.
It's not. It's most certainly not. But it's like, when it goes down to match play, do you think that guy's like, who would you rather have in your corner than Keegan? I would guess a lot of those teammates would say yes. Yeah. They might be wrong. I might be, I may be more conditioned, like thinking of how they're probably thinking. And I might not be seeing this clearly. I could totally see JT laying a complete egg in that first morning and be like, oh shit, man. Like this really was a way bigger fundamental problem than we understood. But like, I also can see, like, again, I go back to the Sergio and Poulter examples way more than anything we've ever seen on the American side of like, dude, they've taken those guys and they've been a pain in the side of the U.S. for so long. And JT has been that guy ever since he joined any U.S. team.
Yeah.
I think JT,
he's a match play stud.
I think Keegan was a pain in the ass.
Except for the Austin match play event when he doesn't want to play because he doesn't like the course. Outside of that, you're right. He's a match play stud.
I think Keegan was a pain in the ass to the Europeans back when he was before the putter change. And I feel like some of the same qualities are there too. It's like he's going to annoy the shit out of the Europeans. Like Miguel Jimenez almost got in a fight with him in the course once during match play. Now Keegan got his ass kicked in that match, but
guys, Katie, I'm kind of
right.
I'm kind of with you. But I think we are burying the lead. What about Kisner? What? I can't believe we're not talking about this. This is unbelievable.
I feel like I should have like a little bit more goodwill earned up for like the last time we did this. It was Kisner versus Scheffler, and it's like even if I get this one wrong this year, I feel like those two will balance. It's out. I'm gonna leave you this, Kevin. I'm sorry to do this, but. Okay. Keegan's last Ryder Cup match 9 years ago, which this might mean anything or might not. He got beat 5-3 by Jamie Donaldson, right? Like, I don't know if he's a pain in the side.
Jamie Donaldson was a fucking dog in that match, though.
There was a world
Jamie Donaldson was
Jamie Donaldson out of your mouth.
Unbelievable. They got steamrolled. That you can't like tell me about that shitty Tom Watson Ryder Cup in general. They were completely done at that point. They were so pissed off. They wanted to knife their own captain. They were just sharpening the knives in the background, getting ready like that. I can't take that as like the closing argument here.
Who are you removing from the team? You're removing JT for Keegan Bradley?
I'm not removing JT. I
just wanted to have the talk.
I'm honestly, I would take Keegan over Cam Young. I would say like
it's kind of where I'm at too. And I know that's a future. It's a this guy's going to be around for years and years. I do think Keegan gives you a better chance than Cam Young in this moment.
Cody, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I said that last week, but I changed my mind. I was sending all the pictures. Nobody liked my photoshopped Glover pictures I was sending over this week, but I think Cam's on the team and JT is on the team.
And Ricky's on the team. I think we're in agreement there.
Charlotte made a good argument for Ricky. I think that's fair. He has played better golf. He's he fits in. There's good chemistry. I think the knock would be he hasn't been great in the Ryder Cup, but I think he's earned it more than some of the other guys we're talking about. I think he's earned it more than Cam Young has.
Your point, Sally, about how I think JT, it's not just that he's part of the cool kid club. He's, he's got this. I think it's a little of both. I think they want to go to battle with the guys who have been pushing this in one specific direction for a while. And I think that matters. I'm not going to say that it doesn't. I don't think it's just always been good in the past with the Ryder Cup. There is sort of like, okay, like we know that we want Spieth on the team, and we know we got to pair him with somebody who feels really comfortable with him and has been really good. And so I think those are all things in favor of JT's inclusion. I just think that Keegan deserves a little bit more credit than just the dismissal of like, that dude ain't it. No, like he has been it at times. Like I think he just deserves a little bit more consideration in this. And that's why he has felt like he had to go on this political campaigning system where he gives like a really good interview in the rain delay, because no one kind of is considering him. And I think that's a bummer.
I think, Kevin, to clarify, I think
he's trying to whip the votes.
Yeah. I think he's the 13th man. And if there was like a Zalatoris injury that struck the U.S. between now and the Cup, I think I would want that spot to go to Keegan. Like I would feel good about that. I would feel totally fine with him being on this team. I just don't think there's a spot for him. There's no one I'm unseating out of those 6 for Keegan.
Are we just totally from the just asking questions guy? Are we sure about like Spieth? Do we feel good about Spieth?
No,
because he's just kind of an automatic bid, but I don't think he's an automatic bid. It's just like, no, but he's on the team. And it's like, well, he's been playing like kind of crappy, but he did make the Tour Championship. I can't figure out, maybe that's just Spieth in general, but it's like, I don't know. Is he playing good golf right now?
He did not get an automatic bid, by the way. He's going to need a captain's pick.
That's what I mean. And we haven't even mentioned him yet as like,
I think what's in favor for that is that he and JT have played really well together. That pairing is set. Like it's always hard to figure out who to pair with whom. And that, that's a lock right there, that you can play them in all shot. You can play them in 4-ball, whatever, and they'll probably do pretty well. They've shown that time and time again at multiple Ryder Cups. And so I think that's probably JT, like Jordan's best thing is like, all right, if JT is going to be on the team, then why not just solve this other problem and have Spieth be with them? They don't have to play in 5 matches. They can play in 3 matches. And we know that's going to, give us a good chance at winning 2 of those 3 of those matches at least.
I was just asking questions.
No, it's a good question.
I'm not trying to start a fight or anything.
No,
that's a great question.
I feel like Spieth ends every year like this, where you're just like, dude, what are we
doing here
right now?
Yeah.
But like, dude, whatever it is, when those 2 get together, they are an incredible team and they piss people off. And maybe the teams against them just don't play good golf, but they win a shitload of matches together. And I'd be absolutely stunned if they were not in the morning 4-ball. I don't know if I assume they'll go 4-ball in the mornings. They usually do in Europe. I would be very surprised if they were not in the opening morning slate at Marco Simone, along with Xander Cantlay, Scotty, and somebody that I haven't figured out yet, and maybe Max and Morikawa. Like, dude, feel pretty. If I'm Zach Johnson, I feel pretty good about running those 8 out that first morning.
Brian Harman and Scotty, I'm calling it.
I think that'd be sweet.
I don't have an answer. I don't have a strong a no or yes to that. I'm so intimidated after learning how they actually put this stuff together. I'm so scared to like actually suggest these 2 would go great together, because the couple times I've done that with some of the stats guys, they're like, yeah, that'd be the polar opposite of actually what we would do, and here's why. And it's super interesting. It's like it's a totally different stat platform on slower greens and on rough that's above this height level and fairways that are like this. And if they're par 5 scoring, you want guys that have variables in their par 5 scoring versus par 3 scoring, so they're not covering each other up with birdies and all this stuff, like gain like a little bit of a slight edge is how they put it all together. And giving guys the right distance of shot in. If this guy hits this shot, then we want this guy who's the best skill from 180 to 200, blah, blah, blah. It's really boring, but
is that a better method than Tom Watson getting a napkin now, do you think, and like changing things up 20 minutes before the pairings? Or
who they pair together? Furyk and Mahan in foursomes, and they never practiced their golf ball. Mahan ran out to go practice. Like, I think that's the U.S. team has come a long way since then. I really would like to think so, but who knows? They'll probably play like shit in Europe and lose it all over again. And here we go again. So
2 years is a long time. What I've thinking about today is like, it seemed like the Americans were going to have like a dynasty. They're going to kick the shit out of the Euros, whatever. And now like 2 years later, God, so much has changed in the world of golf. And all of a sudden you got all these Europeans who look really good again, when a year ago they looked like they were dead in the water. And I honestly think Euros, I would say, are half a point favorite. Like at home right now, like that would be my pick. If I was a betting guy, I'd put money on the Euros because 30 years of history matters in this.
It'd be because something freaky happens over in Europe every single time. I think it's maybe a little exaggerated, like how good the Europeans look. I think at the very top, I mean, obviously with Hovland, Rory, okay finish to the year. Rahm, pretty meh finish to the year. Lowry, very much just okay golf. Fitzpatrick had a good playoff event, but I don't know. I'm not totally convinced this team is like super stacked, and they've got some weird stuff going on at the bottom. Yannick Paul could still earn a berth onto this team. One of the final spots that'll be available this coming week. Nikolai Højgaard or Ludwig filling that final spot. I've been very pro Ludwig. I believe one of our other colleagues, I think, has mentioned it as well. And I think they should do that. But like there's some question marks down there.
Well, I know we've dogged you forgot about Fleetwood. We've dogged him for not winning, but he is playing. He's had a very strong end of the year. He's been all over every leaderboard. So
there's still time.
I'm with you, KVV. I think the Euros have kind of snuck up. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be very competitive. Is what I'm thinking.
There's still time for a lifetime European Tour member Patrick Reed to renounce his U.S. citizenship and see if he can get on that Euro squad. So, like the 12th man on the Euros.
Well, I feel like this leads in. I have a question for you guys. I know it's like there's a Player of the Year award to be named, but who do you think, in air quotes, won the 2022-2023 season? So you got the three guys at the top. You got Scheffler, 2 wins, 16 top 10s, number 1 in the OWGR, no majors. Rahm, 4 wins, Masters champ, 10 top 10s, number 3 in the OWGR, but kind of has petered out a little bit. I'd say the last, month, 2 months?
Finished 18th in the overall standings.
I know. That's wild, isn't it?
Wow.
But it's like you look at that numbers, he's got more wins than anybody, and won the Masters. It's almost like you forget about that. Rory, 2 wins, 12 top 10s, no majors, of course. So those are kind of the big 3. Honorable mention, I guess Victor, 2 wins now, wins the FedEx Cup, all the prestige. Hell yeah.
3 wins for Victor.
3 wins. What was the third?
Memorial, BMW in this.
Oh yeah, Memorial. God, that's right. 3 wins. Okay, so that kind of bumps him up the list. Is there anybody I'm missing that you would throw in there as a potential winner of the season?
I got one, Neil.
Yeah.
Brooks Koepka.
Brooks
reestablished himself as a top player, won a major, was competitive, basically was like proven as it's right. Like you should have taken the money. Like I got my 200 million and you're never going to get it. Had himself a kid, like everything about Brooks' season.
He didn't have a kid.
Sorry, Jenna had the kid. Everything came up in favor of Brooks this year. And I think overall, pretty successful winning season for him.
He also won a live event.
That's exactly. Brooks probably made what, $15, $20 million this year, which is about what, freaking we just made from the Tour Championship. So I'd say Brooks. That's my dark horse pick.
It's a really hard question. I think if I'm looking at like wins and results, there's no season I'm trading for Rahm's, right? 4 wins in the Masters.
But it doesn't feel like that, right? And that's such a statement on this FedEx Cup where it's like we should be talking about like Victor's the winner, but it just doesn't like. That's why I was sitting here thinking about it.
Golf has its peak moments are just not at the end, right? Its peak moments are down through the course of the year. And dude, if you're picking one tournament to win, it's the Masters. I don't think anybody won nobody won more than 4 times. Also, he had 3 wins to supplement that. One at Riv, which was like sneaky, like just a freaking awesome tournament this winter.
Or how about the tour, the Century when he came back 6 shots down? I mean, I think an iconic shot for me of the year was, Colin flubbing that chip on 18. Like that was tough, man. That was tough to watch. But Rahm comes storming back. And then, and at Riv that was incredible. So, but you almost forget about it, right? Because it's 6 months ago.
Even though he did come up just barely short of winning the Grand Slam, he had a runner.
I was gonna say that.
He had a runner-up at the Open too. Like it's Rahm for me. I mean, Scotty had the better golf year, but I don't know how you don't end the year disappointed in what you got out of that.
I know for a data guy like you, what best strokes gained season since Tiger?
It's fair to say like Scotty was a better golfer this year, but you would not trade that for Rahm's season, right? I mean, there's a difference in like looking at who the better golfer was and like who had better results there. And I don't know. That's pretty obvious, I think. So,
KV, I think Brooks is up there. I honestly, once you list that out, it's a tough one between Rahm and Brooks.
I would say with the controversy around Team Smash, that brings Brooks down.
It is,
Bad team chemistry.
bad
Yeah.
Well, they're still together. Like he hasn't, they haven't executed a trade there. And then Matt Wolff, didn't he just win or he played really well? I don't give a shit enough to look, but he played well after, and it seemed like things were much more kosher. Maybe you just
I think they
need a little
found out
kick in the ass.
They couldn't trade during the season, which like in their defense, I can understand how you'd be confused at this thing is actually running on rules. But I think they thought they could trade him and they learned they couldn't, which I understand is a rule change for next year.
I'd also throw Wyndham Clark in there with, statement win at Wells Fargo and obviously the U.S. Open, and then really good finish. I think he was fourth, T3. Played like consistent, solid golf all season.
I think Wyndham's clearly established himself as a true like top 10 player in the world. It wasn't, the U.S. Open win elevated him, but honestly, the rest of the season and what he did at the Tour Championship was like, all right, I'm going to validate that. I'm going to prove that I'm not going away. I'm not just like, the fact when we look back someday, it's like, oh my God, like Rory lost the U.S. Open because Wyndham Clark beat him. It might not seem that sort of damning years from now. It'd be like, oh, Wyndham turned out to win 2 majors. He's a legit, really good player.
If you want to talk about somebody, we were talking earlier with somebody that flipped a skill. Wyndham was -0.6, -0.5, -0.6, -0.4 with iron play in his 4 full seasons on the PGA Tour to +0.5 this year. Almost a full shot gained per round with irons is a monumental flip in a long game skill. Like you just do not see guys flip something around. Like that's, if you look at the top players' pages, they're like green every year. Like they just are always positive. Nobody goes from that far negative to that far positive that quickly. And yeah, he's like a post-hype sleeper in that he has all these tools that, so much of this potential that like it just took forever to kind of pop. And now it's like, oh yeah, dude, hits swings like 190 miles or ball speed's like 190 miles an hour and has good iron play. Like, dude, you're just going to play good golf if you combine those two things. So I'm glad he's got it straightened out. I think it was just been pretty so-so since the U.S. Open. No top 10 since then, and hasn't really been that competitive, but obviously a good, strong finish to the year, and we will 100%, million% be seeing him in Rome. So
flipping this at the end, though, who is your most disappointing person of the year?
JT would be an easy answer. I think Morikawa
JT division,
is up there for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like he was kind of a non-factor, and I think he almost regressed a little bit. And then maybe some of that's just Hovland on the rise, where you're like, oh, wait a second. Like, we kind of thought Morikawa was the guy, 2 majors, like guy, nobody strikes it like him. And I just felt like he had a very disappointing season.
Nobody was hotter at the beginning of this season, Neil, than Morikawa. And the short game chef, we thought this was going to elevate him, bring him, and who would have thought it turns out being Hovland and Joe Mayo.
It's funny because I remember that from late last year or January, like, Morikawa was picked to win, at LA, like, oh my God, nobody hits it like him. And he had that collapse at Century, and it just kind of got everything off on the wrong foot.
I have trouble reconciling it, and I'm not the only one that feels this way. And that I kind of want to agree, yet it was his best statistical season yet. Like it was his best numbers yet. Did not have the peak weeks, did not have the wins, did not have the top, the things that people remember, which is I think why I feel this way and why a lot of people probably do. But iron play was as good as it's ever been. Just really freaking solid.
That surprises me.
It
just didn't pass the eye test. This is where you need the eye test. It just wasn't there for me this year.
I don't see a hole in his game. When I look at his finishes in the top 20 over the last 4 years, 10, 13, 10, and 10, including this year. Obviously, his wins go 2, 3, 0, 0 over the last 2 years. So the no wins is obviously, again, what people will remember. But I think maybe in those years he was winning a lot. He had just weeks that he was totally forgettable. And this year he was just kind of more even keel and level. And we don't have the wins to remember a season. But yeah, you're not trading, you're not trading Keegan's season for his. Like you'd much rather have had Keegan's season than Morikawa. Even though Morikawa is going to win the strokes game, like Keegan had a better results, got more out of a year. So
I feel like, I gotta mention Rory. I feel like, no major, that's disappointing. A few close calls. I'm sure he's disappointed in that too. And then normally it's like no major, but like, hey, let me go win the $18 million. Then just felt like the body kind of fell apart at the end too. So hopefully he can get healthy and get it back next year.
I feel like I got to nominate Cantlay. Like I Patrick's a better golfer than Max, and yet they have the same kind of like major problem right now where they're just not competitive in majors. And I feel like Patrick should be held to a high standard at this point of like, why are you such a, like, why have you never ever been competitive in this? Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why someone who hits it that good, who putts it that good, cannot find a way to be competitive at the Masters or at LACC, or it's just doesn't make sense.
He and Xander, his buddy Xander, they're just they're the strokes gained bash bros.
We do this way too often. We can't compare Cantlay and Xander's major records. They're not the same. They're not the same. Xander's been competitive in majors. Cantlay has not.
That's fair, but I guess lack of one. I would say Cantlay has more statement wins than Xander does. Feels like, tour champion last year, BMW twice. Like those feel bigger at bigger times in the year than Xander's do. But I feel like Xander's probably, like you're saying, more consistent overall, better finishes in majors. So it's kind of a toss up on who's more disappointing.
All right. We had a bunch of questions. I think we can maybe save some of these for the fall. I wasn't sure we'd have enough to talk about tonight, but it turns out we had quite a bit. Always good. Always enjoy a good spirited Ryder Cup debate. On the LPGA, I've been kind of waiting for this to finish. It looks like Jin Young Ko is lining up. She is leading by one shot currently at the in the Canadian Open over Megan Kang. Lining up a putt here on 18. Cody, you know what this is for? What are we looking at?
This is for par here for Jin Young Ko here at the par 4 18th. It's center.
Oh, look at Cody.
5
go back into
seconds
his radio voice here.
You took the call away from me, hearted it. Slight fist bump there as she shows the crowd her appreciation. Gives Georgia Hall a great big old hug.
Megan Kang
started the round 5 shots back. Not a good day for Megan Kang. She just bogeyed 17th, sent an 8 under par. Needs to do something here on 18.
Cody, 2 years since Jin Young Ko had a win. Looks like
she won this year, didn't she? Didn't she win?
She won Founders this year.
Okay, I was looking at the Wikipedia page, which is not updated, which is the perils of that. So, no, you're right. Sorry, but it's been a while. So maybe it's majors. So that's what I was looking at. It's been a while since Jin Young Ko was really good.
Come on, KBV. A journalist like you knows you can't source from Wikipedia.
I know. I'm sorry. I definitely apologize to the pod. I know that's a trap.
Back to back this year, earlier this year.
Okay, let's strike that.
No, almost.
Yeah, she won the HSBC and the Founders Cup the next week. Oh, I'm sorry. That's March and May. Sorry, 2 months apart. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Doing this on the fly. Solheim picks were made on the European side this past week, Cody. Suzanne Pedersen selected Madeline Sagstrom, Gemma Dryberg, Carolyn Headwall, and Emily Christine Peterson. What's you've been following this situation closely. What's your reaction to those picks?
Yeah, I would say Emily probably 2 kind of outsider picks there for Captain Pedersen, but all in all, like team dynamics wise, she went out and like Randy and I said on the podcast and then talked about it a little bit on Twitter. Like this European squad is like a bunch of dogs, man. Like they're coming for a fight, and that's the squad that she picked. A lot of them based off of previous play and then relationships that they have with the rest of the team and then with Captain Peterson. But it is going to be a tough European squad for Spain. Tough. Not good, especially as we continue to watch this. A big mea culpa for me from the our Solheim preview podcast. I was talking about Lexi falling out of the LPGA points list. Megan Kang just absolutely stuffing it here on 18 to 4 feet for birdie here. Kang, the pride of Massachusetts, a great Rhode Island prospect. But yeah, it was bad. I messed up with with Lexi. Either way, she was going to be a fall off the U.S. Solheim Cup list on the normal qualifying period, but the Rolex fallback, she's going to take that top spot there automatically on the team. And now it basically comes to her. So does she want to play and compete and be a part of the squad? So far, she's saying yes, she is. She's playing the next 2 events leading up to it. So we'll see if some increased play, because I think she's only played in like 6 events so far this entire year out of 30 available. Gets her game in form here, but it'll be interesting to see what Stacy does picks tomorrow. Excited to find out, though.
I'm sure we will have. When's the next scheduled reaction to that on the LPGA pod front?
Well, we have a LPGA pod Cincinnati week, so in 2 weeks. But honestly, with everything that we have going on next week, we might do something, or we'll do a Twitter thread or IG live or something. But we'll react to we'll react to the picks once we have them. Like again, I said tomorrow. So I think it's like noon Eastern or something like that is when the announcement is.
To check in with your editorial director, see what's his written content that can go up live on the website.
Is that Twitter thread? We're not right. I don't write for this website.
that falls under my purview. Damn it!
Take it up with someone else.
This coming week is the Walker Cup at St. Andrews. I believe it is going to be aired on the Golf Channel in the mornings. I've seen a lot of conflicting reports on that, but I'm excited to watch that. David Coker shot a 59 on the Korn Ferry Tour, third 59 this season. Got to admit that was news to me. Did not see that one. I don't know how it compares strokes gained to Bryson's 58, of course.
God, those guys go so low on the Korn Ferry Tour. It's got to be very
like
demoralizing to try to. It's crazy when you see the scores for those tournaments.
It blows my mind that like people shoot 59. Everyone's just like, okay, cool, man, that's cool.
One of my back when there was only like 4 people who'd ever shot 59, a buddy of mine had a great idea to write a book about like all the 4 people who'd ever done this, and went and interviewed him. And in the interim of the time that he was like writing it, like 3 more people shot 59. And it was like, oh, the book is totally fucked now. And so he had all this stuff written for this book that never will see the light of day.
It's like George R.R. Martin, just like you can't finish. You're never going to finish the series. It's just not going to happen. Too much going on. Alejandro Tosti, I think I'm saying it right, was forced to withdraw from a Korn Ferry event for a disciplinary matter this week. Still waiting for more information on that, but apparently this dude is like Patrick Reed on steroids in terms of disciplinary problems, and I don't know what you have to do to like cursing out volunteers and doing all kinds of stuff. I'm waiting for a report, full report on what is
early sources are saying it was a bit of a lifetime achievement award.
Yes,
I've played with him before.
PGA Tour. You've played with him?
I have, yeah. I played with him in a practice round for the Latin America Amateur Championship one year at Costa de Campo when I think he was a freshman or sophomore at University of Florida. And so you got to watch out for a lot of the players from South America because they just start flying off words in Spanish, and they'll say like 15 cuss words in a row, like after a missed putt, very, very loud. And then when we're playing down south somewhere and you have everybody around you is a Spanish speaker, and they finally like realize what you're saying. And he was like very much like red faced, flushed, like, oh, I can't do this anymore. But he's had multiple run-ins in college as well as amateur play. He runs hot. That's the number one thing. And he kind of has this thing where what starts happening is that the people who are in his group start reacting to it because you can see by these outbursts and like, hey man, kind of calm down. I guess there's something the last couple of weeks that he's starting kind of directing it more at volunteers and things like that. He also has like a lifetime achievement award for not being able to add up his scorecard. And I'm not talking about like cheating. Okay. I'm not saying like intentionally stuff here. There's been times I know in college, he had multiple events where his assistant coaches would go into the scoring tent with him and hover over his shoulder to ensure that he got things correctly added up. So I don't know if there's something going on there or whatnot. Not saying that he's like intentionally like shaving strokes or anything. He just has troubles with scoring. So there's a lot of different things going on with the young stud there who already had his card locked up. So it'll be interesting because I think this is one of those things where the tour is never going to tell us what the hell like actually happens. But I know Ryan French from Monday Q has been kind of beating this down. So I'm excited to see what his reporting is going to be from it. We missed it. You talked about that 59, but shout out to Chant.
Really quick, just say for legal purposes, Patrick Reed is not on steroids. That was a comment that I just made. That it was a comparison that I made, which was an alleged comparison. I just want to take no legal responsibility in any way for any of those statements. So thank you for the comments in there that were warning me I should get in front of that.
Yeah, end of the season grind here on Korn Ferry Tour. And shout out to Chan Kim, who ended up winning this event in Boise. And shout out to Albertsons, one of the best grocery stores. Doesn't get any respect out there at all. But anyway, Chan Kim, back-to-back winner here, which is tough to do, like Neil said, when these guys are like, it's just a horse race out there, man. They just go so freaking deep.
Wow, man.
Great.
Anything else?
I'm trying to stretch this out here as we watch Megan Kane line up this putt here on 18. The ball is finally back down. She's removed her mark, settling down, giving it a couple looks. I will say this, laughing about when Big and I went over and did radio is truly one of the funnest experiences that we've ever had. Because I think we all, at times, we've been away from radio or from TV coverage and had to dial or tune into the radio. It was so much fun to do. Can't wait to have another opportunity to do it. I'm still waiting. This is where you talk about the birds and the trees and weather.
I might be doing some at the Ryder Cup, by the way. Just allegedly. I don't know. I might be popping on radio. Just popping in.
She made it. Back to 9 under. We got.
How are you ahead of me now?
We got a playoff.
Congratulations to either Megan Kang or Jin Young Ko. Our editor, you can just dub in here whoever ends up winning this here as we wrap up our live show. Kevin, you're gonna say?
Well, I was on the note about Tassi. You would have been so proud. So my daughter played in her first real tournament this past week, and she did the thing where you exchange cards with the other person. She'd never done that before, and so in the tent they were adding them up afterwards. And the other girl had written down that she had a 5 on the first hole, and my daughter was like, "No, I had a 7. Like, that is not right." And I was so proud of her for being like, I add my score up correctly. Like, I'm not going to take the lesser score. I was like, oh, we're working on. We're building something here. When your kid is willing to right from the jump be like, you messed this up. So
for people that are asking about the Marco Simone video, it will be coming out this week.
Listen,
a lot of people
said after BMW. We just didn't say when after the BMW.
Every time you ask, it gets delayed another week. So the beatings will continue until Moran improves.
It reminds me of the film, or not, the crash course that we did on Wild Horse. As TC announced it way too early, and then people were just dogging his ass for 2.5 months. Where's the Wild Horse video at?
If you guys are wondering why, I wanted to make sure ZJ picked JT before he saw the rough on this golf course. That's the reason why we've waited this long. Is I'm very corrupt and wanted to make sure that didn't interfere with anything. So, anything else before we wrap?
Stolly, I want to say something. Thank you for an awesome PGA Tour season as the 2024 calendar on the PGA Tour wraps up. I think from live shows wise, of course, we're going to have live shows for Solheim Cup and Ryder Cup. But being the fact that now all of a sudden we had designated events, elevated events, whatever the heck they are, it's been a heck of a run. So thank you for sitting in the captain seat almost every single episode, even when we're close up to the wire on Baby Watch. But it's been a ton of fun.
Thank you for running the 1s and 2s and making it a place for people to come hang out on Sunday nights. And thanks for all the people that are involved in the chat and listening and encouraging us to do these. It's been a lot of fun. This was a big undertaking for us this year, and we're gonna keep it rolling. Shout out to High Noon as well for putting these up. And it's been an adjustment for us to do these live, but it's been really rewarding and a lot of fun. And it's fun to kind of get that live interaction with people as we're doing it. And I love the video aspect as well. So, all right. Well, that is it. We are probably not going to have a show next Sunday. We'll have an episode, but probably not a live reaction to the week on Labor Day weekend. A lot of people got a lot of stuff going on. People traveling for Walker Cup and weddings and all that kind of stuff. And we're paid by the PGA Tour, of course, and there's no PGA Tour event next week, so they don't want us promoting any other golf out there. So that's the big takeaway, of course. Here,
draw the dots. So I
guess that's the end of the season. I hadn't really thought about that until just now, but very, very weird sport that we follow, and it's a lot of fun. So. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for everyone in the chat. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening on the pod. And we will see you back here soon. Peace.
Bang-a-lang!